All right, boys and girls, welcome back to the drive-through. Special shout-out to our guest in that studio attendant here, Casey Green. Yeah. All right. So, I respect what they're trying to do here, but I don't think it is realistic that all of you guys will be able to figure out where the quadratic formula comes from, how to deduce it on your own, because it took humans like tens of thousands of years to figure it out, mostly because it wasn't important. And then when we started launching things, okay, so when things started being lobbed, so those were like cannonballs and catapults, you know, projectiles. Then humans started caring more about parabolas because everything due to gravity travels in a parabolic shape. So then once that started to matter, once they started wondering, well, let me back out of that. No. Okay, so once, like, we had a castle. There's my castle. And you had a guy standing up there shooting bow and arrows at people. Okay, and then this guy down here, well, he wanted to use his little trebuchet or whatever to get that guy. Well, once we started realizing that, oh, that's a parabola, then people started caring about math a little bit more because it could help them more. And then people started wondering about, like, how do we figure these out? Okay, so in general, if you have any quadratic equation, so y equals ax squared plus bx plus c, you can find out where that parabola hits the x-axis by using what's called quadratic formula. I think that's where we were at. We just had a fire drill. So, to repeat that last sentence, somebody figured out a formula to figure out the intercepts. So this is something, comma, 0, right? And this is something, comma, 0. And now there is a formula to figure that out. And you just got to sing a little bit. It's x equals minus b plus or minus. You've never seen this probably before. It's just plus or minus, because how many answers are there? No. 2. Up to 2. So minus b plus or minus big square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. That is called the quadratic formula. And just so you know, Carson, that's what the John Rick formula is doing. It's doing that exact calculation for you. Okay? So, I think what I want to do is just take a look at the graphing calculator. And if we just look at this thing, and let's just type in a random quadratic. So x squared plus 6x minus 36. How's that? Let's see what it looks like. Notice, I'll zoom out so you can see a little better. All right, so it does hit the axis twice. So there are 2 answers, okay? We know how to find them. So just so you know, you don't even need the quadratic formula. If you use your calculator, it's doing the job of the quadratic formula. So let's remind ourselves how to find this, Carson. What are we going to do? How do I find the intercept? Second, calculate. Not the minimum on this one. We want the 0. I got to get my little water bug. I'll find it. There it comes. Here it comes. I got to get it to the left of the answer. Hit enter. I got to get it to the right of that. Hit enter. Would you like for me to take a guess? Yep. So you got a negative 9.7. Sorry that I didn't have this ready. Negative 9.708, comma 0. And you get, so let's go second, calculate the other 0 now. So now we got to get this water bug moving to the right. Exactly, Casey. The 0 is where it crosses the axis. Hit enter, get to the right of that 0 point, hit enter. It's taking a guess in between those two arrows. And the other one is 3.708, comma 0. Okay, now so that this makes sense, Carson, let's go back to the equation. And you get, this was for y equals 1, 6, and negative 36. All right, so what number is the A?
1.
Very good. Most people would say X. A is 1. It's the number in front of the X. Mathematicians are lazy, so they just leave it out. They just leave it out. Okay? What's B? B is 6. C? All right, so now we're going to go back and sing that song. X equals minus B plus or minus big square root of B squared minus 4AC all over 2A. Okay? All right, so check this out. Negative 6 plus square root, oh gosh, 6 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 36, excuse me, negative 36, okay, all over 2. All right. Where's quit? Here we go. Check this out, Carson. Negative 6 plus. There's no plus or minus key. We have to do them one at a time. That's why I only wrote a plus there. Okay? Square root. 6 squared minus 4 times 1. I'm gonna not skip that because I don't want to confuse you. Sometimes that won't be a 1. Times negative 36. Okay, now I'm going to divide all of that by 2, Carson. So first I'm going to hit enter. And then I'm going to do divided by 2 because that's what's on the bottom. And look what we get. That's what we got. Sorry. Okay? Exactly. It's just now you got 2 different resources. One, this old school formula. One, your graphing calculator. Because you understand, what I just typed in, I could type it on any calculator. You don't need a graphing calculator to use the quadratic formula. That's the advantage. But do you have a graphing calculator every day? Then you don't need the quadratic formula then. So, remember the plus or minus thing? See this? So now we got to do the same thing with a minus. And I don't want to confuse anybody, so I'm going to write all this out. And I guess I should have written 2 times 1, because A is 1. Okay? And I'm lazy. And I'm lazy, because I do math. So now we'll do the same thing. And here's a little graphing calculator trick. Go up to this thing. Hit enter. And then scroll over here and change that plus to a what?
Minus.
Just change it to a minus. It might be easier than typing them all in, although this thing, oh man, it's turning red. It's overheated. Oh dear. Oh dear, I've screwed it up. Alright, so that was unnecessary, and now I've screwed up the whole calculator. So we're going to turn it off. We're going to just start it all up over, Carson. Uh-oh. We better pause the video. All right, we got it back queued up, okay? So, let's just, so, minus 6. Now it's minus the square root 6 squared minus parentheses 4 parentheses 1 parentheses negative 36. Hit enter, then divide by 2, and look at our other answer, Carson. It's exactly what we got. So that's why on this particular video I'm going to go off the script, because they were going to use all 8 of those pages to try to get you to discover this. Okay? So don't worry about it, but now you understand it. Hopefully you can remember it. But if you can't remember the quadratic formula, what are you going to do? You can sing the song, or you can use your graphing calculator. So as we look through this, graph the function. How are we going to do that? Graphing calculator. Let's go ahead and find the vertex. We haven't done that on this video yet. Okay? So y equals x squared minus 2x minus 3. Let's sketch the graph. You might be able to know that the vertex is over 1, down 4, but I'm not sure about that. I don't even know if it's right. So how are we going to do it? How are we going to find the vertex? Second, calculate, yep. In this one, now it's a minimum. Oh, we got that water bug in a nice spot. Hit enter. Go over to the right of the bottom of the parabola, which is called the vertex. Hit enter. Would you like for me to take a guess in that range? Yes, I would. The guess is 1, negative 4. Okay? So, what is the vertex? 1, comma, negative 4. With that in mind, what's the equation for the line of symmetry? X equals 1. Okay? Graph the function. Well, I'll tell you what I'm going to do, Carson. I'm just going to graph it over here. It's a little quicker. So, 1, negative 4. Let's go back to our calculator and pull up the table. 0, negative 3. 2, negative 3. Sorry, this keeps disappearing. Let's scroll up one more. Negative 1, 0, which means I bet it's going to be what, comma 0? 3, comma 0. Okay? That's the graph. Now, I'm honestly like 2 steps away from tying all this together, and I'm going to close this video out. You can choose to go through the practice, or you can go right to the ready, set, go. Now this is all going to make sense. Carson, could you factor this for me? No, looking for 2 numbers that multiply to be negative 3 and add to be negative 2. I agree. Negative 3, positive 1. So that's how you would factor that, right? Well, we can use, so I want you to know, this is really important. These 2 things are the identical equation. They're just written in 2 different ways. Should we show your dad how to prove that? Yeah. So can you FOIL that for me? X squared. Plus 1x. Minus 3x. Minus 3. So that is the same thing as x squared. Minus 2x. Now it's looking right. Minus 3. Now why are we doing all this? We're just trying to tie all of it together. What was our answers again for our x-intercepts? Negative 1 and positive 3. Look at this. What number do I put in for x? That gives me 0. Well, what's 3 minus 3? And what's 0 times anything? So if I put in a 3, it's giving me a 0. What's negative 1 plus 1? What's 0 times anything? So if I put in a negative 1, it's giving me 0. Now one more thing to tie it together. Let's do the quadratic formula. So x equals minus b plus or minus big square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. I'm not even going to do this in my calculator because I already know what the answers are. The answers are 3 and negative 1. I know that. Watch. What's b? And what's minus negative 2? Positive 2, right? Plus or minus big square root of b squared 4 minus 4 times what's a? A is 1. What's c? Negative 3 all over 2 times 1. I'm going to do this in my head because I already know the answer is nice and neat. 2 plus or minus big square root of. All right, what's negative 4 times negative 3? Positive 12. What's 4 plus 12? Oh, that's nice. Okay. What's the square root of 16, Carson? So the answer is 2 plus 4 over 2 and 2 minus 4 over 2. That is 3 or negative 1. So now you're kind of starting to understand why this chapter is 13 sections long. You've learned lots of different ways to work with what type of shapes? Quadratics or parabolas. That's excellent. One of the things we can do to find our intercepts is called factoring. One of the things we can do to find our intercepts now is called quadratic formula. But what always works, Carson? Use your graphing calculator. And that's where my approach is. It is why it's $100. It's amazing. You're paying a lot of money for something that can't connect to the internet. Like, that's why it's so valuable. It's crazy if you think about it. But that's what this lesson's all about, okay? You should now be able to go do your homework, and I'm not so concerned about all of the rest of these things. I want you to be able to answer this question, but I don't need you to do it any certain way. You can factor it. You can use quad. You can use John Rick. You can use your graphing calculator. What matters to me is you understand what you're doing and that you're a great problem solver. Got it? I'm not going to tell you how to do it because this is America. You can do whatever you want. Got it? Boom!